And the way that you write about that in parallel to the experience of your mother passing away is incredibly moving, and I think drives into that idea of Hireth and the associations of childhood, memories of family, and sort of sense of belonging, and the sadness that goes with that. If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind talking to you a little bit about those chapters where you talk about your mother's death, because it's, for any of us who've lost a parent, it's incredibly moving, and I imagine it must have been really hard to write about. So one question I had was that obviously when you wrote The Salt Path, you wrote it for Moth, and you didn't anticipate that it was going to be something that was going to be read by a wider group of people. When you wrote The Wild Silence, it was obviously written with a reader in mind. You knew it was going to be published. So I wondered how difficult it was for you to write about something so close to you and so upsetting as your mother's own death on the page, knowing that so many people were going to read it.
It was a really difficult decision to include that. I was writing The Wild Silence, and I was really struggling to find the form of it, to find what it was I was actually trying to put across. And when I realised what I was trying to say, to actually find a way to say it. But then as I realised that what I was superficially doing was writing what came next, but actually in real essence, I was writing something so much more. I was writing about that connection to the natural world, about nature, about how that had influenced our lives and driven it forwards. I knew then that I had to go back in order to go forwards. But in going back, everything that I thought of had originated around the time of my mother's death, because it was then that I'd revisited my childhood, because I'd rediscovered those points where nature had sort of formed such a close bond with me during my childhood, and how my parents' relationship with the land had influenced my own. And I could have found another way to frame that. But at the same time, the death of my mother was so closely interwoven in my head with the illness that Moth was suffering and the terminal nature of that illness, that I couldn't not write about it. And it is so personal, the death of a parent, and it is so emotional and traumatic, but it's something that we will all witness, we will all live through in one way or another. We will all live through that. And in a way, as I was writing it, knowing that people would read it, I knew that it was an experience we would all share. At some point in our lives, we would all share that moment. And I felt I needed to share it too, because it is such an death of the actual processes of death, the actual experience, and quite traumatic experience of simply witnessing the passing of someone that you've cared for, someone that's been part of your whole life. If we can't share that, then what are we sharing? We're just sharing superficial moments and not the reality of life, which is in essence, what death is.
I think you've put it so well. I think there's a sort of generosity in allowing us the glimpses into those final moments that you and your mother had together. That's just that we can all kind of get some kind of solace from. There's nothing that can prepare you for that. But seeing and knowing and understanding that other people are going through similar things and having to make similar decisions it offers such reassurance, I think. And I think lots of people would want to thank you for that. And I do. I think it's a really wonderful piece of writing. I think that part of the book provides such an anchor.